Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll call the meeting to order, please, and we apologize for being a little tardy. Please call the roll.
Councillor Olson. Councillor Fennessy. Councillor Bender. Councillor Sweeney. Councillor Sweeney. Councillor McDonald. Councillor Mazzolia. Councillor Finsland. Councillor Herrick. Councillor Dennis Dahlbeck. Councillor Esther Dahlbeck.
I'll ask the pleasure of the council with regard to the minutes of November 5th council meeting. Heard the motion. Heard the motion and second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Item number
Public hearings.
5.1 is a public hearing regarding a resolution introduced by the Plan Commission to vacate and discontinue a portion of 2nd Avenue East between East 5th and 6th Streets, southwest for 145.12 feet.
At this time, I'll call for a public hearing and ask those that wish to speak against or for to do so now. For the second time, those that wish to speak in favor of or against may do so now. And for the third and final time, those that wish to speak in favor of or opposed to may do so now. Hearing none, I'll call the public hearing to a close and ask the pleasure of the council.
Second.
For the motion, second, discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried.
Item number 6 is the consent agenda.
For the motion and second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Item 7.1, Planning Director Cirque and Parks and Recreation and Forestry Director Morgan are presenting a PowerPoint regarding proposed dog park sites. You also have before you tonight at your desk a petition submitted by Sandy Manzelli with 201 signatures opposing the dog park location and requesting to be referred back to committee, and a communication from Darlene Olson.
Mary?
Mayor, councilors, members of the public, thank you for your time and attention this evening. The last time that you folks considered the matter of a dog park, you referred it back to City Planner Cirque and myself to do a little bit of a more detailed analysis of more than one site. And so I just want to tell you by way of process, we reached out to some of the neighbors at Billings Park, and I have to commend them, Mr. Horvath especially, Mr. Mannion and Mrs. Mazzelli, met with Jason and I, and they had surveyed the community. So the first slide you see is a slide that they brought to us that offers 30 potential sites for a dog park. And you all know that if you drive around the community and you're trying to decide on where something should be positioned, it often looks to you like, oh, it could go here or it could go there. So Jason and I sat down with these folks, and they were kind enough to come in and give us some of their time, and we went over each and every one of these sites. And for one or another reasons, perhaps it was industrial park, perhaps it was wetland, perhaps it was privately owned, we narrowed the list down to about 12. And so Jason is going to spend some time going over those 12 with you. But we also decided that we probably needed to measure each site by some kind of criteria. So we developed 7 points, most of them taken from the American Kennel Club recommendations for a dog park. And then, of course, we have had an outpouring of opinion about positioning a dog park anywhere near residential properties. So the first criteria is that we wanted to position a dog park away from residential properties, but it's a little bit tricky to define that once you say that. Secondly, the American Kennel Club recommends a minimum of 1 acre for a park We believe 1 acre or 2 acres is desirable, and there are many dog parks in Wisconsin and elsewhere that are many more acres, 5 acres, 7 acres, 20 acres, and so on. Ideally, if such a park could be centrally located in our community, that would be awesome. However, we all know that to centrally locate anything in our community is difficult. Accessible, meaning no need to build a roadway, again, would be ideal. Amenities, for example, parking at such a site, again, would be ideal. It would be nice if the site didn't have wetlands because it's an expense to mitigate or deal with them. And then finally, the 7th item is that we thought it would be ideal if it were city-owned, if the site were city-owned. So we sat down and went through the 30 sites, whittled it away down to 12, and then Mr. Horwath and I visited also with Brad Thine, the city assessor, and further refined the list for your consideration. So we wanted to bring you these sites because it seems to the average person that it ought to be easy to site a facility. But you know, leading this community, that there are layers of complications that surround lots of our properties, you know, wetlands being one of them, for example. So we wanted to just bring you these sites for your consideration, show you what our thought process was, and hopefully help you identify any other questions you might have for us in considering the matter.
Jason?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mary. Like Mary said, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the 12 or so sites that we have selected, and you know, I think some of them are going to be pretty obvious that they're not going to work, but we wanted to just kind of let you know what some of the issues are with some of the sites that kind of been out there, have been talked about. We need to invest in some new AV equipment too. Yeah, is there a way to turn down the lights a little bit, maybe? Because the color, everything's kind of getting washed. No, that's perfect. Yeah, that looks good. Is that okay in the audience? Is that okay in the audience? Okay. So the sites here in the Billings Park. So essentially, we divided the city up into, I think, four kind of quadrants to look at, and I'll go over each one of these sites to talk a little bit about each one of them and some of their challenges. The first, and this is one site that's been kind of discussed, is actually the North 28th Street and Wyoming Avenue, which is the Millennium Trail, kind of the trailhead. It fits the acreage on both Area A and Area B. We could do it. It's away from residential relatively. You still do have some folks across the street. Centrally located, not so much. Accessible, yes. We still have a lot of the amenities there, parking and the like. There are wetlands in the area, and even though, just to kind of back up a little bit, the blue is actually a wetland coverage that is provided by the DNR, and it's kind of substantiated by our SAMP coverage that we have. When a developer or anybody that comes to us and has a situation like this, we ask for a wetland delineation because we want to know where those boundaries are. Those boundaries could be there, they could not be there, they could be further than there. We have to be sure before we progress with a permit or any type of land disturbing activity. So that's essentially how we applied the wetland criteria on this. It is city owned. There would be some tree removals, and you see the purple there is a ski trail. We would have to navigate some of that and also deal with some of the folks that use the ski trail, and probably close the park to winter so that it can be utilized, and probably have gates on either side so that skiers can go through. The other thing that's not on here is this is in the forest. That is a supermajority for approval. It also lends itself to groups of people coming out and wondering what we're doing in the forest, and is seen as forest creep. So those are some of those things that we want to talk a little bit about and add another layer that we'd have to go through approval. This is out on 42nd Street as you're heading towards the archery range. It's a piece of upland, large enough, borders 42nd Street, probably could make the parking work. Again, in the forest. The There are no wetlands, more or less, in the area. It's city-owned, yes, and a delineation, however, would probably be needed, just because it's adjacent to some wetlands, and it's also in the forest. Not too centrally located, but we think that we could make it work with street parking. This is actually at the archery range, adjacent to the parking area for the archery range. That's on your left there. That's that kind of that bright area. Again, in the forest. There are some wetlands present. We probably would be okay with this one. Again, purple ski trail. We do have as you know, a lot of ski trails, and that would be something we'd have to consider if we were to move to this site. So this one not quite centrally located either, because it is on that Billings Park side. And then the site on Texas Avenue, again, just for review, 2.5 acres. It is not away from residential. It's not centrally located. It is accessible. It does have amenities. There would not be any wetlands required on this. And, of course, it is city-owned. So I think we know enough a little bit about that one. So now we go to downtown and kind of east end. There are a few sites that were identified with the group as well as internally. This is the site at Heritage Park. Down below there you see is the skate rink, the skate park. We do not own a lot of this property. The piece that is in the dotted red that you can kind of see there is owned by Superior Water and Light. Again, large enough, pretty prominent corner. Probably wouldn't have to do any wetland delineation or anything of that nature, but there is a very large Cloquet water line that goes through that area, and that would be something we'd have to consider as well. Plus, having to work with Superior Water and Light on a lease or a purchase or what have you. Parking is also a little limited there, but it would probably work. This is a site on North 28th Street. That's Barden Avenue to the north there that's coming out. Just some kind of sites that are, as you drive in that corridor, I think the group said, hey, there's a lot of open space over here. It's owned by Calumet. It is extremely wet and pretty high-valued wetlands in the area. Parking is an issue, but we wanted to make sure that you kind of knew some of the layers that were a part of this area. A site that we discussed in my office was actually along the kind of the Asauge Trail. There's a very large piece of property that is the city owns, but is bordered by the tracks down here. This is about in the 18th Avenue East area. It would be essentially along the highway. Could work. It's very long. I don't think, in my opinion, is probably the highest and best use for this piece of property. It is waterfront property. Probably should stay open for viewing and for entrance beautification that we do have. So now we go down to kind of the South Superior side and look at a few sites in that area. Number 8 is 46th and Tower Avenue. It's at the corner. It's actually in our airport reserve. It is wet. It has a SAMP site. It does have some amenities. There could probably be some parking worked out where the restaurant is there. However, being in our airport reserve, we would have to actually go through a lot of hoops to pull that out of there. We've learned this over the years. Probably if I was going to spend time and or money to pull this out, I would want a development that's probably going to be a little more substantial than a dog park, and go through that process. That's usually about a 2-year process, plus it entails details of paying ourselves back for the property, essentially, into the airport fund. So probably not the highest and best use for this site. Now we're going to go way down, and this was a site that was pulled out from the group, 58th and Albany. You're kind of that dark section on your right there is actually a holding pond that is kind of collects some water from some of the development down there. The purple in this case is actually a snowmobile trail, which would conflict as well. Cannot ride the ditches in this area. This snowmobile trail has been here quite some time. This is a crosstown trail, correct, Mary? Yes. So we would have to close for wintertime, but also provide some gate entrances and exits. Not a lot of amenities. Probably road parking would work. Again, not as centrally located. and probably, again, closed to winter use, but it is city-owned as well. This is another piece that has kind of been talked about. This is actually, on your right, is the golf course, is the west side golf course. On the other side of the tracks is a property owned by Enbridge that has been purchased from the Kimmis family over the past couple of years for mitigation banking for wetland fill. So I do not believe this is probably even part of consideration for that, but we just wanted to show you that this is one of the sites that we did discuss, and it has a lot of no's associated with it, and parking and things of that nature and conflict. So Nemadji Sledding Hill. Again, off of Woodlawn Road. Kind of a confined site. Probably wouldn't allow a lot of room for folks sledding. It is accessible. There would be some parking. Has some potential. However, there's some topography issues, and kind of the biggest concern that is there is this is a very large Enbridge easement. They would get a little bit nervous for us placing structure and like on however many pipelines are in there. I do believe there's 3 or 4 that are in this corridor here. So again, they do a lot of routine maintenance. Probably would be in there quite often and asking us for permission to come in and out of there. So has some perks, not a lot from the functionality standpoint. Now we get to the Bear Creek site, which we've talked a lot about, and there's kind of 3 options in this site, and one of them probably that will not work, and that's C. Letter C is actually high-valued wetlands, and probably will not be considered. It's got enough land, but does have the high valued, and we would be asked to do alternatives analysis on that, and probably, in my opinion, wouldn't pass muster for a wetland fill. Skip down to A, which essentially is the dark square, is the property that is the balance that is left over after the animal shelter is built. The animal shelter is actually constructed, and hopefully my pointer shows up here. Maybe it won't. I see my screen has gone dead over here, Terry, for some reason. There's the pointer. Did that show up? The animal shelter is being constructed on this site, and it's more or less kind of taking up to right about to the edge of the basketball court there. So in order to give some space, A is actually the area that the city owns. Now, in the last day or so, we've been working with the Department of Transportation to look at leasing essentially that dotted strip that you see there, which would get us up to about 1.6 acres or so. This is conceptual, of course. It could look like that. It could have a little different form. But essentially, this site now has a little bit more favor because it is large enough. The reason we didn't really like it very much before was because it wasn't large enough. So again, it's away from residential. It's not really centrally located, but we do have a lot of infrastructure there, not only because of the park, but also because of the new animal shelter. So there are some advantages there. So I'm going to kind of turn it over to Bruce, our mayor, to talk a little bit about and have him just to talk to you a little bit about some issues.
Mayor, before you make your remarks, I just want to stress with councilors that the exercise that we have been through in recent weeks is not unlike the exercise that we went through with the JCs. They too came to us when they were interested in working with us on a dog park, and they looked at 20 sites or 15 sites as well and visited many as well. So I just want to let you know it's not dissimilar to that at all.
Thank you. I'm going to cut to the chase. My job is to make sure that not everybody's happy. So I think it's illogical that this dog park, if you will, is not constructed next to the $2 million animal shelter that we're in the process of building for a lot of reasons. First of all, it isn't centrally located, but we're not going to find a place in the city that's going to be centrally located that'll appease everybody, and our job is not to appease everybody if we're doing the job at all. Secondly, it's on a very well-traveled highway. It has access for passersby that want to rest their dogs, for people in the community and those that are visiting. It's very visible. Thirdly, it is right next to the animal shelter. Fourthly, it also provides a lot of activity around the animal shelter wherein people may want to say, hey, let's go look at some puppies. Fifthly, it's a park. It serves all kinds of activities from baseball to basketball to picnicking and so forth. There's a trail right there on the other side of the property. It just doesn't make any sense to me to not put it there. So I'm recommending to the council at this moment that the animal shelter be placed in that particular location. The other thing I'd like to mention, and I've heard varying degrees of support or not on it, is the size of the animals, the size of the dog park. That's massive. Just last weekend, I was in Houston visiting a daughter, took her dogs to an animal shelter, an animal park, I should say, that was about 75 feet wide and about 200 feet long. On one side is a playground, the other side was an apartment building. And so when I wandered around there with her dogs and thought about the size of the shelter we're intending to build, or not a shelter, dog park, I just don't understand why it has to be that large. If it has to be that large, we can always move the fence later on. So I would recommend that we work toward putting the shelter at the current animal shelter construction in Bear Creek Park and make it work there.
I'll make a motion to approve site number 12 next to the animal shelter. I said I would go along with what Jason and Mary come up with, and I'll go along with it.
I'll second it.
For the motion and second, discussion, Councilor Fennessy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not opposing it at all. I just know that when we originally talked about a dog park, that was one of the original areas. But then the Douglas County Humane Society was the one that kind of shifted our thought process because of the animal shelter. So I'm kind of curious if they're on board, or I don't know if I think somebody's here from the Humane Society. I'd just like to get the perspective of how that either enhances or challenges the animal shelter.
Hi there, Council. I'm Michelle Porter with the Humane Society of Douglas County, as you guys all know. I honor what Mayor Hagan Mayor Bruce is saying about being at the shelter. There's a couple of concerns that we have because of the number of animals that we take care of in the months, going with about 100 animals a month. That kind of stresses out the animals if there's not some sort of barrier between the public and the animal shelter. So that is not a favorable place. We've done a research of our own on shelters with dog parks next to it. The ones that we had contacted had huge dog parks, and we're concerned with a couple of different things. We'd love to get the people out there, and if option C was an option, that might be a better location C on that lot. That would be a better thing. One thing in our plan that we're still working with the city on is to get dog runs that are not necessarily in the plans right now. And so in order, if the dog park goes there, then we might not be able to do that. And taking our shelter dogs into the dog park might not be a good option due to the fact that based on the Department of Agricultural, we can't keep the dogs contained. So we could have an animal that needs to be outside, and we wouldn't be using the dog park with necessarily our shelter animals. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So we have concerns. We would love to see it close to us to draw people to the shelter, but we're concerned with the responsible pet owners bringing their pets that are vaccinated and healthy and everything else to that dog park so close to our shelter animals that are going through getting vaccinated and all that type of stuff. Does that make sense? Do you guys understand where I'm kind of going with that? Mm-hmm. Okay. Sorry, it's kind of like spur of the moment. Yep.
Councilor Olson.
What kind of barrier are you talking about to eliminate some of the stress?
Just a visual. Like if we had dog runs out there that we maybe had the plastic around, slid into the slots of the dog runs, that type of things, just so that they don't have direct contact with them.
I guess my point is that's a pretty easy fix.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. There could be some other things. But with that dog park kind of rounding us, we have a couple of different areas. Off to the one side, section B, we're going to have two get acquainted play yards that are going to be on that side. So that would be, this thing looks like it's going to butt right up to, right on the side of where our runs would be. Does that make sense?
Sure.
But
How about-
we could definitely put some slots in and stuff like that.
How about some plant life that would seclude vision as well?
Yep. There's
Pine
different
trees.
options that could be done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Counselor Sweeney.
I just want to say one thing in terms of the closed session had absolutely nothing to do with the animal shelter. So I just want everybody to know that up front.
Thank you for that, too. Any further discussion?
Good.
We have a motion on the floor. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. There are people who want to speak to this issue.
If you still want to speak when I call your name, come on up. Julia Johnson?
Good evening, councilors. I'll keep this short as well. I'm Julia Johnson, 2005 Lackawanna Avenue. I'm supporting the dog park being placed at the Texas Avenue location in Billings Park. It is less central, per se. It is not by the highway. But I think the research shown tonight does show that the JCs have done their homework. The site there has one of the fewest amounts of no's in that line. It's great for the neighbors who are there. There are already people in that neighborhood who would not go out of town due to a lack of transportation who have volunteered their time to clean up after the dogs and to take care of the park in Billings Park. So I'm just urging you to reconsider that location and consider the Humane Society's concerns. They are fixable, but so are a lot of the concerns for the Billings Park location. You can put up a barrier, you can put up trees, you can put flowers and things in to make it smell better. There are still options to make fixes there as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lynn Halter?
Julia just said exactly what I was going to say.
Okay. Mark Moselli? Mark is okay. Darlene Olson?
I'm Darlene Olson, and I live in the city. I sent Denise some information in regard to why dog parks are not a good idea. I'm for a dog park. The reason you got that information was because I thought that it had some good ideas in there and some suggestions and some things to think about. And that's the only reason. It's not because I'm against a dog park. I am not. I love animals, and I think a dog park would be to the benefit of the city, actually. But I'm concerned about the placement of the dog park. That's my main concern. I feel strongly that the dog park should not be located in a residential neighborhood. Actually, I've done some research. Right now, and I'm sure there are others under construction, but there are 24 specific dog parks in the state of Wisconsin. None of these are located in a residential area next to homes. I'm sure there are others being built and so forth throughout the state, but those are the ones that I could find. Of the 24 dog parks, I spoke to 16 individuals that were in charge of the parks. Some of those people were park and rec directors, and some of them were from organizations such as Friends of such and such a dog park. For the other 8 dog parks, I went online and found pictures and locations, and none of them were close in proximity to any homes. After finding out that none of the dog parks are located in a residential area, I thought, why? Most of the dog parks were not centrally located. Many were in wooded areas or more secluded spots. One reason may be the health hazard. Any contact a dog has with an infected area, including grass, dirt, or another dog, can leave dog and humans vulnerable to disease. In fact, just as I came in tonight, I saw out here the too cute to pollute, and some of the information that I have done my research has factual information on this. According to the EPA, a single gram of dog feces can contain as many as 23 million fecal coliform bacteria. The bacteria can cause serious kidney disease and intestinal illnesses in humans. By putting a dog park in a residential area, the risk of spreading these parasites is greatly multiplied. According to the EPA, dog feces is a legitimate concern. It poisons grass and lawns. It carries hookworm, ringworm, tapeworm, and more. Dog feces is literally a poison for plants.
Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up.
Okay, the runoff can have an effect on the gardens, on lawns, and I think putting it in a residential area, you have children's safety to be concerned about, and people that grow gardens in the area. If it's in a different area, in a wooded area or an area that's not in a residential area, it would be much safer.
I should have stated in the beginning, it's a 3-minute limit
Okay.
according to the council's action.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Al Horvath?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councilors. I would like to ask at this time for maybe a couple extra minutes to go over some of the things that I have to say to you, if that's allowable.
What's the pleasure?
And we should have set that up at the beginning, so everybody had that opportunity, and
Yeah.
I don't feel we should allow that now.
I asked
Sorry.
before the meeting started and was told that I could approach you on that. And that was the protocol.
Yeah, I told him that also, that if he was interested in asking for more time, he would need to ask the council for that, so. Okay.
Council's not acting on it.
No? Okay. I'm Al Horvath, and I got involved in this because I saw where this park was going to be located, and I took the time to go talk to the neighbors to find out what their feelings were on it. Now, someone has stated here previously that the neighborhood was in support of it, but we have over 200 signatures of people who do not feel this is an adequate space. The city and some of the alternative sites that we've proposed for you, and thanks to Mary and Mr. Cirque and also to Brad Thine for making the time to talk to us about our concerns and look at some alternatives. But some of these alternative sites provide vision for the future, where not only a dog park could be created, but you could also have agility courses, you could have dog training areas, you can also have potentially field trials, and down the road, maybe dog shows, which would bring people into the area. So I think that looking at some of these alternative sites allows for an expansion of dog use and dog pleasure and owner's pleasure by taking a look at other sites. The city of Superior is built on a wetland. And when you look around the city, there are oil refineries, schools, athletic facilities, malls, businesses. There's all sorts of use of that wetland space. So I think that if the city is serious about this, those areas could be mitigated to allow for establishment of a dog park that does not conflict with any human use. I think the top priority here is to take consideration of the residents that are going to be property devalued, who are going to put up with the noise and the trouble, with the potential threat of disease. There's a community garden about 200 feet away from the Texas Avenue site, plus gardens in the neighborhoods. The world is changing into a less civil place, a lot of selfishness, a lot of people looking only at their own concerns. And in regards to this dog park, this can be accomplished and make everybody happy. Why put it in a position where so many neighbors are adversely affected, where their peace and tranquility, their quality of life is diminished? To me, it just doesn't make sense when there are alternatives like out at the shelter. The owner of a home for special needs children that lives on the end of Texas Avenue bought that property for his son and 4 to 5 other children because it was removed from traffic, it was quiet, and it was a safe neighborhood. You know, the world has handed these children a difficult enough road and their parents. They're very disturbed by the hours this park would be open. They're disturbed by animals. Their safety will be challenged. And I think for these kids alone, that alone would be reason to not place this on Texas Avenue or any residential area in the city. We have signatures of 200 people that agree with us. The council has been very good in allowing more time to explore other potential sites. Mary and Mr. Cirque and Brad Thine were wonderful to make themselves available, and we appreciate that. And we ask you now to consider your residents, put this park somewhere where it doesn't conflict, where everybody can utilize it and be happy, and where there's no fallout from it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Sheila Kite.
Hi, thank you. I am from the Humane Society of Douglas County, and I would just like to elaborate a little bit more on what Michelle had to say. We don't think it's a good idea to have the dog park right up to the shelter. Our dogs need to go outside. We have dogs coming in that are not vaccinated. Some are sick. Some are, parasites, fleas, you name it, they have it when they come in. That's going to open up everybody else coming in to those diseases, potentially. It takes a while. A dog is not vaccinated fully until it's been there a couple of weeks, because you vaccinate, you have to booster. It leaves us no room for our runs. Our dogs cannot go into the public runs because they are not vaccinated at the point of coming in. And the Department of Agriculture, we have to have our animals outside so much time a day. Where are we going to do that?
I just want to assure you that what was shown there, we will make every accommodation to have the separation so that it isn't conflicting with the animal shelter operation in accordance with what's necessary for the animals and for your organization. It looked as though it's going to abut the animal shelter. It will not.
Another really large concern I have when we are able to build our outdoor runs, if you come out to the shelter and our animals are outside, one person comes in with a strange dog to introduce for adoption, that kind of thing, it goes crazy, absolutely crazy, because that strange animal is coming on. These are insecure animals. These animals are stressed out at the point that's, they're not at home. With a lot of animals coming and going, my fear is it will create a lot more stress on those animals also that are in the shelter. And I think that's about all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilor Olson.
I got.
Go ahead.
Do you want the rest of it?
Yep.
Okay. Taylor Peterson. Oh, Brent Fennessy. That's the last one.
Good afternoon, Brent Fennessy, 810 East 3rd Street, and I just want to be clear that the JCs, we've gone on record to support a dog park, to give this gift to the city, and we've gone on record to support the Texas Avenue site. If you guys want to move in a different direction, we're going to have to take that back to our committee. The JCs, we're putting $20,000 into this park, and it's taken us a long time to build up this money to give this gift to the city. And we want to make sure that we're satisfied with the location, with the size, with everything that meets our criteria too. So I just want to make that known that If you guys want to head in a different direction than what we do, you can. But we're going to have to take this back to the J.C.'s. If that's the direction you guys want to go, that's fine. But if it's not a direction that the J.C.'s want to go, the $20,000 gift, we do have to have a partnership here. That being said, the sticking point for Texas Avenue seems to be the residents. It's in a residential neighborhood. If you look at an aerial map of it, go out 2 blocks from any one side of the dog park, I count 13 homes. There's 13 homes on a lot of one city block in the city. And if you go out 2 blocks in any direction, there's 13. That being said, we've gone on record to put some nice trees to put some kind of a buffer, and we've had a lot of support for this project, for the site. The J.C.'s, we still would like to see this at Texas Avenue. If it's something that you guys want to go in a different direction, you can. Otherwise, you're going to have to wait on us if you want to do it as a partnership, because we're going to have to take this back to the board. It's a $20,000 donation that the J.C.'s, it's a small little group of 30 of us that we raised, and we want to make sure that we're satisfied with that donation and where the money's going. So with that, I would still ask you guys to consider Texas Avenue as the site, as in my opinion. And if you look at the facts on the PowerPoint, it's the best spot for a dog park in the city. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Olson?
Julia Johnson still here? I just want to make a comment to you. You had made a comment earlier about us not thinking that the J.C.'s did your due diligence, did a good job with all your planning and stuff. I don't believe that there's anybody in this room that doesn't believe that you did a very good job. I think you all did a very good job at what you were doing. So I want to make sure that that's clear. Okay, but so my comment is that myself personally, I think the J.C.'s did a fantastic job of moving this forward. If the council chooses to go to a different site, that'll be the wish of the council. But I think everybody has spent a lot of time on this. I want to thank city staff for their involvement, Mr. Horvath for your continued dedication for what you see the future in this. But I don't think anybody has done any wrong at all in any of this stuff. And I think as far as the animal shelter and a proposed site out there too, they are two complete different situations here. I'm pretty sure that we're not going to be on one side of a cyclone fence with a dog park and the other side of a cyclone fence with a shelter. So those things have all been taken into consideration. Thank you.
Councilor Dennis Dahlbeck.
I just want to thank everybody that worked on this, especially the J.C.'s. These are going to be our future leaders down the road. Chances are some of them will be sitting here in a few years. They've done an excellent job, and I just want to congratulate them.
Any further
city
discussion?
staff also.
Any further discussion? If not, I'll call for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Item 7.2.
Could I get a clarification, please? The J.C.'s, we don't know if this is approved, if they're going to have to go back to their membership, correct?
Correct.
Okay, just so our motion, I just want to be clear of that the motion is approval, basically pending the J.C.'s approval of the donation.
I have the recommendation. The motion was to continue to work toward the Bear Creek area.
Okay, work toward. Okay.
Yeah, work toward it.
Okay.
You raise a good point, Councilor. If in fact the J.C.'s feel it's not the proper investment for them, for their organization, then, and if we further that particular spot, that location for a dog park, then another action would have to be conducted by the council with regard to funding the fence, everything that goes with it. Thank you.
Item 7.2, Planning Director Cirque is presenting a Duluth Transit Authority Transit Operations Analysis Study Update.
Mr. Cirque.
You're probably sick of me by now. Bear with me for about 5 or 10 minutes. Been working with all of our partners that you see up there, Northwest Regional Planning, the MIC, us, the DTA, and we've collectively hired through the MIC SRF consulting engineers to do a transit comprehensive operation analysis. Yes, it's a mouthful. Something we've been pushing for probably for the last 5 or so years, and Ron from the MIC has graciously funded a very large portion of this. The city is responsible for about $5,000 of about a $70,000 study. So very gracious to our partners for that. Essentially, what I wanted to bring you up to date on is we're coming to some recommendation areas, and I'm going to present some of those. What the MIC board will also see some of these in December, and that's essentially why I wanted the council to see this. And I'm thinking, and I got this at the end, we're going to probably have an open house at the beginning of the year just to get the community involved, to talk to them about some of the recommendations for you. So I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about what the study has. It's community conditions, and I'm not going to talk too much about community conditions. We all know it, some of the median income things and that sort of thing. What I wanted to concentrate on are what some of our existing transit system conditions are, challenges, what some of our good things are, and then talk a little bit about some of the concepts or recommendations that have kind of come out of this. Just sort of familiarity, we have 2 routes essentially. We have Route 16, Route 17 that come through the city. This is Route 16, runs more or less through the city, circles around down by the mall, comes up back through UWS, and then goes all the way out to Eloise Itasca and makes a turnaround at 53rd Avenue East. Very long route, folks, very long route. Run time probably about a little over an hour when they should be under an hour. This is, and it's kind of difficult to see, but this is Route 17, Billings Park area, South Superior area. Another run time, just about an hour, kind of a straight shot to South Superior and then back again, running through the kind of the Walmart area as well as the Target area. Very, again, hard to see, and I apologize for that, but this is essentially some of what they call a lightings or onboards, and where most of the traffic is coming from. You can see in the downtown corridor, most of the larger circles, and then as we make our way out, we've got 1 to 10 folks getting on or getting off the bus. You can see Fifth Street is fairly busy as well. And this is some of the lightings that happen along the Route 17 as well, just to kind of give you an idea of densities. Here's where our problem is. Ridership has decreased over the last 5 or so years from 172,000 and a half to just about 136. It's increased in Duluth. The major reason for this is missing connections. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, but that is what you're going to see throughout this whole presentation is the connections downtown are missing each other. People are not riding the bus when they're missing. And when I talk about missing, we're talking about a matter of minutes. We're talking about 4 or 5 minutes on either 17 or 16, mostly 16. So that's what our consultant is telling us, is that you need to figure something out to get ridership up, and the missing connections is the huge, huge deal for intracity travel. Of course, our operating costs are going up. This is essentially what it takes to operate a bus, or the system in Superior. City of Superior, out of general fund, pays for about $550,000 of that annually out of our general fund. Operating ratio. This is another way of saying, what does the fare box in Superior pay for those operating costs? So of that $1.3 million, 9% is paid for by riders. The rest is subsidized by either the City of Superior or the federal government. I don't think it's a mystery to us. It's about 20% in Duluth, just because of more ridership, but 9%. And we did have some better years, but as we decline, of course, the revenues go down. So what are some of our strengths? Through routing, we don't have a lot of sit time. You don't see a lot of sit time for buses in Superior, and that helps with some of the run times. Customer information, I think if some of you ride the bus, DTA has done an excellent job of customer information all over the Twin Ports. They've really got into this technology, and it's actually a pretty cool thing. If you do ride the bus, they have a trip planner that it essentially will tell you where to get on the bus at what time and where it's going to take you, and then a web watch so that if it's 20 below outside, you can actually watch where that bus is and head out to your stop and kind of time it. So there's some really nice technology advances that they've had. Scheduling, they've really done a nice job to accommodate some of the scheduling that on both sides of the bridge, and that was pointed out. And some of these are based on some survey information. And then service delivery. Drivers are excellent. That's survey. There's text alerts that drivers get to kind of avoid construction areas and things of that nature. And then, of course, the buses are always clean. If you ever ride the bus, buses are extremely clean and very friendly. So what are our needs? Kind of hit upon some of them. We have kind of an upside-down system here. We do have some peak ridership in the mornings and afternoons, as you would run, but we have a huge peak ridership in the midday, which is awkward. And we don't serve those folks that well. We serve them on the hour, not on the half an hour. So that's some of the things that we need to look at. A lot of these folks are getting on and going to, yes, Bob, Walmart. They're going to Target. They're going to Menards, those types of areas. I'm sorry. On-time performance, I talked a little bit about that. We're missing connections. And you're saying, well, why is it getting worse? Well, traffic is up. Freight trains are up. Ridership is differing, and just the geography of things has just really compounded the issue. And then we really need to make a conscientious effort to kind of get our intracity market improvement. There's really not a good way to get from Eloise to Walmart. You got to get to do some switching. There's a lot of time involved, so there's some things to look at there as well. Really, really hard to see, folks. I'm sorry. This is just one snapshot of the downtown transfer point on-time performance. 0 above, everything is negative below, and essentially those are the times of days that are at the top, or at actually the months, and then you see everything. There's not one average on time on this area, so that's where we're missing our connections. So talk a little bit about some of the concepts or recommendations that have come out of this, and I'll breeze through these fairly quickly because we're going to probably see these again. Of course, there's a recommendation, and this would be across the board of Route 16 or 17. Gene's not here to cringe, but essentially additional fleet resources, and that would be adding a bus at $195,000 a year. That would solve some of our runtime problems by adding an additional bus. There's going to be some, and I'm probably going to be recommending, we're going to be eliminating some bus stops. We really have a lot of bus stops in town. That was identified by the consultant. He's like, and I don't know the ratio, but we're double the ratio of what we need for bus stops. Again, that may be somewhat painful, but we may eliminate them over time. And then reducing round-trip mileage, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that in these slides here. There's a couple of options of making some route adjustments, and I'm just putting these out here as recommendations. They are not, our concepts, I should say. They are not anything that's set in stone. We're going to bring these to the public. What you see in the crosshatch there is actually how the bus runs today. To make it more direct and to knock off some time, probably about 3 or 4 minutes in this case, bring it all the way from from what would be Catlin Avenue there on to 21st all the way to East 5th Street. That'd be one solution to do that. To bring it around. Actually, that's not Catlin Avenue, that's Hill Avenue, I'm sorry. Whoops. The other is to have a hybrid of that and to actually continue it on 28th Street. This would have a bigger impact on a lot more riders, and this is something we'd have to seriously consider, but it would have an impact on some fairly considerable ridership. The other, which really would cause some issues, and I think Tom knows what we're talking about here, is actually shortening or eliminating that leg all the way to 53rd and actually making a turnaround in kind of the holiday parking lot there. And I think this one is probably not going to be considered. This is something that we do have a lot of ridership in that Eloise Itasca area, and it's something that we would probably probably shy away from, but also is on the table. So here's what some of the suggestions were with price tags, and more or less the only one that comes with a price tag is adding the fleet vehicle. A lot of these, and these folks listened to me when I went to them and said, we want some no-cost alternatives on these. So what about Route 17? Again, additional fleet resources, eliminating some bus stops, and then we're going to be looking at reducing some trip mileage. Some of them are pretty easy and pretty painless and really don't affect a lot of riders. One would be eliminating a north turnaround or having a turnaround in our north end, shorten that up a little bit. That would eliminate a few minutes. It's amazing what a turnaround does on time. And this is kind of on Tower Avenue in the Winter Street area. Dan, in your district, down in South Superior, we do turn around. I do believe it's kind of in the 60th or 61st area, 63rd area. We would think about eliminating that. Again, we do have a few riders, and that would affect, and actually turning around kind of in the Webster Park area, going around the block or something of that nature.
It's in a residential area.
I know. But again, this is something we have to vet. And then there's some changes that we can make kind of around some of the drop-off areas on times of day in the where we're by the Targets and the Walmarts, where we can really save some considerable time and really not decrease service. We'd probably have to make some pedestrian improvements across Tower Avenue so that folks can get across on a northbound trip. But these changes would probably be fairly subtle and fairly easy to make and would save a minute or two. Again, another one of those kind of by the Target area there, going through Target. So here's some of the costs that are associated with that, other than the political costs and the people costs. We'd have to look at, these are fairly easy items to do on paper, but very, as you know, very difficult to do from a political standpoint to eliminate these things. So I just wanted the council to be aware of some of the things that are being talked about, what we're looking at, and again, making sure that you know that we're going to be vetting these and be bringing you probably a few of these in an implementation standpoint and looking at probably eliminating a few of them that are not going to be, we know, that popular or that functionally that are that benefit. One thing I want to address that the mayor and I get hit up on quite a bit is additional service at the end of the day. We're ending fairly early. I think our last bus leaves town about 6:10, something like that. As we all know, there's a cost to that gentleman or that woman sitting in the chair driving the bus. On average, to add an hour of service on either end is about $30,000 a year. So that is something we also need to vet. That is also going to be part of this document to look at as an option. Again, we have to look at what our benefits are. How many people are going to ride that bus? And from what we can draw off of that, we're talking about, for an additional $30,000, probably 2 or 3 riders a week. So we got to put some of these things into perspective when it comes down to making choices and to looking at that. But I think there's probably going to be some really subtle changes that we can make, that we can suggest, that we can probably get our run times and to get our ridership up, and that's kind of the biggest thing that we'd like to do. So I just wanted to let you know, if you have any questions, you can certainly do that. Again, this is going to be at TAC in the MIC, 9th and 10th. And then I'm again looking at an open house on 2015, early 2015. So any questions?
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Just one question. The additional fee for the bus, will we have any, was that our full cost for that, or will that be shared with our transportation reimbursement?
There would probably be a share, Mike.
Okay.
I'm not sure what that'd be. If it would be they'd be 35%, we'd be the 75, or that's not the math, 65%. But that'd have to be worked out. So there would be some cost share, but again, there would be a cost to us. That was just a lump sum.
All right. Yep. Thanks.
Thank you, Jason.
Item 7.3, Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Director Morgan is recommending the construction, design, and observation contract for the 2015 Billings Park improvements be awarded to SEH at a cost of $39,000.
What is the pleasure? You've heard the motion and second. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Any further business to come before this body? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
We got a couple
Counselor?
speakers back there that.
I'm sorry. Counselor?
We have a speaker back there that wants to talk. I think he signed up.
Could you introduce yourself?
Jeff Anderson, owner of Pizza Van Sprayer. I was just wondering why we have all these crosswalk signals on Tower Avenue, and I seen one on Banks Avenue. And one of your busiest intersections, Superior on 16th Street, there's nothing. I would like to see any of you come there and try to walk across that street any time of the day from morning till night. I had a blind guy that lives down the road behind there 2 weeks ago almost get hit. He was standing in the middle of the road with his white cane, walked out, and a car slammed his brakes on, just missed running him over. I mean, Banks Avenue, I never see, why do we have flashing lights down there and nothing where you have a public library and you have an old folks center, an assisted living place there? And there's absolutely no way that they can get across the street. So I'm just asking if some way you can put a crossing signal there, patrol it, something, before somebody gets run over.
Councilor Mazzola could submit that as a councilor's request to Public Works Committee. Would you like that on the next agenda?
Yes, I would. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jeff, thank you for showing up. Me and Jeff talked about this crossing there by the senior center and by his restaurant, and you're taking your life in your own hands trying to cross that street there, even if you are not handicapped. And there's people that walk across there daily with walkers and stuff and wheelchairs. So yes, I'd like to have this on the agenda for the next meeting.
Thank you. I recognize that as an issue myself.
Okay, thank you.
All in favor of adjourning? Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you.